Anyone who has seen her face will have the same answer. The scene cuts to a beautiful garden and a girl with black hair down to her waist, with blue eyes as beautiful as the stars. Daughter of the Archduke of Weimar and wife of the Duke of Carlisle. Irwin Lilias, Duchess of Carlisle, is the most beautiful, but unlike her beautiful and haughty appearance, she is an awful wife that is feared by everyone in Carlisle. Irwin Lilias, daughter of Archduke Weimar, who is dedicated to the Teresa Empire. She is always paranoid and abusive. Most of all, she hates her husband, just as much as he hates her. He cannot even tolerate her. The blonde guy named Dervin Carlisle asks if they are all in a hurry. The marriage period agreed with the Duchy of Weimar is not over yet. He is telling them this because he has not heard from them since their marriage 4 years ago. They have to let them know if they are not on good terms with his wife. If that is the case, then he thinks he should be asking Irwin, not him, since she is the one avoiding him. Dervin holds his head and everyone gets an image of that scary woman Irwin Lilias. One of the men angrily stands up and says how many could withstand the Duchess's fiery temper. They will file a petition to the Emperor to urge a divorce, and propose a remarriage to someone else. They could at least do that much. His Grace, Dervin says that breaking an agreement is an extremely disrespectful act in diplomacy. There is still a year left before the contracted marriage period. They want him to break a national treaty? Are they ready to deal with the consequences in the future? The man who stands up says that for generations, the Duchy of Carlisle has seen only a few successors live beyond the age of 25. The man says that Your Grace is already 25 years old. Dervin says that he is born when his father turns 40. He knows, and he has the power to bear children. It is just not the time to have successor yet. The man stands up and says but. Dervin yells at him that he is tired of hearing about this over and over again. He screams at him to get out of his sight. The scene cuts to 3 men sitting on their chairs. Meanwhile, one of them says that the meeting with His Grace ends without a success. Do they know what else she is summoning us for? One of the men asks. The other answers by saying that she might also ask them to gather wealth again to send to the Duchy of Weimar. The peasants will die again. The man answers by saying he does not know why the Duke overlooks her illegal behaviors. One of the men startles while asking Irwin by saying Duchess. May he ask why she has summoned them? She turns her head and glares at them. She says that she calls them here because she has something to ask of them. He thinks to himself that he knows it. Irwin says to stop providing funds to the Duchy of Weimar from now on. The 3 men are shocked by what they hear and are quite startled by her. Irwin repeats herself that she is telling them to stop sending the Teresa Empire's goods to the Duchy of Weimar and tell their peasants from now on peasants' wealth and property will no longer be deprived from them. She has been so affectionate and attached to her parents. She acts so stupidly, so please forgive her. The men scream that they will carry out her order as instructed. They think to themselves that why the Duchess is suddenly acting like a civilized person? As they walk away, Irwin looks at them and giggles to herself and gets tired, so she sits down and says that she only manages to solve one thing. She is glad they have passed on without lingering regrets. She hears a voice saying that Irwin's foolish actions must be dealt with quickly. And only then. Irwin takes a glance and says she can survive. Unlike the original ending while a book drops, the scene cuts to a girl reading a book and hearing a voice saying that they would like to pay please, to which she shuts her book. The girl is a cashier. And as she scans the items, she thinks to herself that until recently, she is an aspiring singer who works in several part-time jobs. There are countless times she wakes up in the hospital due to her arduous work hours that span until dawn. The girl drops her scanner and collapses. She says to herself that day is a little different. The girl opens her eyes and wakes up to a man laying his head down on her bed. She thinks to herself that his arms with sleeves rolled up, a slender upper body with an unbuttoned shirt, with gorgeous blonde hair. An unknown man is sleeping beside her in bed. The girl thinks to herself and then gets startled, so she covers herself in a blanket and says to herself that she is working. How does she suddenly end up here? And who is that man? What the hell is going on? The girl shuts her eyes and the blonde guy removes the blanket on her face. He pats her head and says, please just wake up. The blonde man is concerned and the girl thinks to herself that once this guy leaves, she will try to figure out what is going on. The man leans in for a kiss and the girl's eyes open, which startles both of them. The blonde guy says, Irwin? The girl thinks to herself and says, what? Does he just call her Irwin? She says to herself that this must be a dream, right? The girl closes her eyes and opens it to an old man saying that there is nothing wrong with the Duchess. The maid says, thank goodness. Irwin gets startled and one of the maids says, you are awake. The girl thinks to herself, Duchess? Are they talking to her? She looks at the mirror behind the maids and gets off her bed to take a closer look. She says to herself that the man she sees earlier calls her Irwin. Those people are calling her Duchess, the Duchess of Carlisle. She comes closer to the mirror and says she thinks she has become the villain in the novel, Irwin Lilias. In the novel about Irwin Lilias it says that she is a character in the popular romance fantasy novel Pervin and Stella. As the illegitimate child of the defeated Grand Duchy of Weimar, she is the only daughter to inherit the blood of the Grand Duchy of Weimar and is dedicated to the Teresa Empire. The Theresian imperial family accepts her as a gift of peace, and she marries the Duke of Carlisle, the right-hand man of the emperor and influential person in the empire. The marriage of the two also has the meaning of peace, so they have to stay married for at least 5 years. But Irwin hates Dervin for pushing her country to the brink of destruction. During the 4 years of marriage there is no news of a successor, and rumors that she is not fulfilling her duties as Duchess spread throughout the Duchy of Carlisle. And one day when the marriage contract period is almost over, his wife Irwin Lilias, who usually hates the Duke of Carlisle, is the first to be suspected, and even the fact that she has illegally stolen the property of the Carlisle estate to the Duchy of Weimar is revealed and she is put on the scaffold. Irwin cries out her injustice until the end, but no one believes her, even a husband who once loves her with all his heart. Duke Carlisle in the end, Irwin is destroyed by death. Pervin Carlisle remarries to the young Countess Stella Bell, who cares for him with great affection. But of all people, why does she have to possess Irwin's body? The girl says to herself in shock. She thinks to herself that a foolish wicked wife, who is destined to die. Irwin panics, but she calms herself down and says to herself that as long as she is in this body, complaining will not change anything. From now on, she can live differently than Irwin. Irwin turns her head and says you while looking at a maid. She says yes, Duchess. She asks how long she has been married. The maid says that this year is the 5th year. The maid thinks to herself that what is she angry about this time? Why is she asking that? Irwin says I see, thank you. This startles the maid. She gets confused on the Duchess saying thank you. Irwin says to herself that she needs to live as quietly as possible for the rest of the year and get a divorce, and then just get 1 villa for alimony and live in peace. She clenches her fist and says to herself that she needs to do this in order to survive. She will be Duke Carlisle's ex-wife. Irwin goes on by saying to herself that by thinking many times about how to survive, her conclusion is to change the perspective of those who fear her by building kindness around her. And the first person she needs to change her perspective about herself is. Irwin gets cut off by Dervin slamming the door open. She gets surprised and Dervin steps towards her. Irwin takes a glance as the maid says welcome, Duke. Irwin thinks to herself Duke? As he comes closer to her, she says to herself that this person is Duke Dervin Carlisle. The Duke with a moody face asks how is her body condition. Irwin thinks to herself if that is the man next to her when she first opens her eyes, the Duke of Carlisle. It is very different than when he whispers softly. She glares at him and he gets pissed off and says that he thinks she is okay so he will go. Irwin thinks to herself no, and holds his shirt. Dervin asks what is wrong. Irwin startles and says thank you for coming here. Every maid is baffled by what they just see. They whisper to themselves asking if she says that. The other maid says that is she still having side effects? The girl thinks to herself that Irwin's biggest cause of death is her bad relationship with her husband. That is why she is suspected of being behind the poisoning to destroy the reputation as a woman who can kill her husband. The first step is to improve the relationship with her husband. She glances at Dervin's face and he has this cold disgust on his face, and says that he has to go. Irwin is shocked and says that it fails from the first step. The girl thinks to herself asking Irwin what has this woman done to make him react like that. Dervin walks away, closes his door and gets flustered, and asks himself what the hell is going on here. Is this the effect of whispering countless times to please wake her up after she collapses? Irwin thanks him when she does not want anything to do with him before. Even if people can change, but she has changed a lot. Dervin asks the maid Tilly, is she still there? To which she says yes, my lord. He calls for her. Dervin says that Irwin's behavior is completely different than before, or has she lost her memory? Tilly says that the doctor says it is too early to tell, they will have to wait and see. It is clear that Madame is behaving like a different person. Her character and speaking style also becomes soft. Dervin asks why she has changed now. She does not usually say a word to him, but she thanks him for coming. Tilly says that could it be that she has made a big decision? You know what they say, after a person gets sick, they become someone else. She may have been tired of being surrounded by thorns and trying to restore her relationship with him. Dervin yells no, it is just all hopeless. Dervin tells her to leave now, to which she says yes, my lord. Dervin gets all confused, says that he decides not to expect her anymore. He promises himself that he would not be hurt anymore. Dervin memory relapses to Irwin saying thank you. Dervin gets all frustrated and says this is crazy. She never even speaks to the people of Carlisle except when she gives orders and when she is angry, even to the Duke Carlisle, her hated husband, or even to Mrs. Tilly, who has been by her side during her marriage. They only have a few conversations. Mr. Tilly asks Irwin how she likes her lunch. Irwin smiles and says amazing as always. Tilly says she is glad she likes it. Irwin says to herself that at first she is surprised just by talking to her. Tilly asks Irwin she makes a mistake in shock, but Irwin tries to calm her down. Irwin thinks to herself that now Mrs. Tilly is already comfortable with her, but she needs to improve her relationship with Pravin before with anyone else. But he is not home. A knock is heard, to which the guy behind the door calls our Tilly and says to come in the kitchen, to which Tilly says she will be there. Irwin says to Tilly that she looks very busy today. Is there something? Tilly says yes, ma'am. Duke says that he would have dinner at home tonight. Irwin is startled and Tilly says that he usually eats outside. But suddenly, Irwin thinks to herself that this is her chance, a chance to show that she has changed, and a very important chance for her to survive and not die. The scene cuts to a maid coming into Irwin's room saying, "Ma'am, I am here." Irwin says yes. "Marianne, come in." The maid says that the dinner is ready. Today Duke is in the dining room, so they will bring her dinner here. Irwin says to herself that she looks nervous. She is Tilly's nephew. Are they still afraid of her? Irwin smiles and says okay, thanks. She tells her to tell him that she will eat with the Duke today, to which the maid exclaims yes. Silence erupts and the maid is left confused. Irwin says, "Why? Is it weird to eat together?" The maid says no. It is not that, but it is just that this is the first time the two of you are eating together. Irwin says to herself, our first time eating together. Huh. Irwin says well, then she grabs a cloth and says that she better makes a good impression, right? Irwin asks the maid if she will help her wear this, to which she says yes while being startled. The maid has this very nervous and frightened look, to which Irwin notices it. She asks if she is afraid of her. The maid panics and says it is not that. It is just that ma'am always wears a black dresses, but now chooses a different color. Out of fear, the maid bows down and exclaims Irwin's name and says if she does not like what they have done, please tell them directly, rather than through her clothes. Irwin has this disgusted look. She sighs and sits down, asking if they should start with the makeup. The maid says yes, ma'am. The maid trembles while doing her makeup. Irwin takes a glance at her and says, "Marianne." The maid says yes, ma'am, while still having that nervous look. Irwin says to not worry too much. It is not that she does not like her or anything. She just wants to get to know her too, Marianne. The maid blushes and says thank you. She thinks to herself that she does not meet all the maids as often as Mrs. Tilly, and everyone, including this girl, has seen the evil Irwin Lilias for 4 years, so the change should be slowly proven by her actions in the future. But why does she take so long to apply her makeup? She looks in the mirror and is shocked to see what she sees in the mirror. Irwin trembles and asks Marianne why does she make up her face like this. Marianne gets frightened and says that she is just doing what she usually does. Marianne screams that she is sorry. She makes a big mistake. Irwin thinks to herself that is expected. She is testing her. She thinks to herself that Irwin's makeup is never described in the novel. Irwin has a very unique taste. One of the maid asks Irwin if she wants to wear the usual rose for her hair. Irwin asks flower. Roses are nice, but today she will go with her favorite lily of the valley. The maid says yes, ma'am. She will pick a pretty one. Irwin says that she will go downstairs first. Marianne. Marianne, still stunned by her kindness, says to herself that she needs to send a messenger to inform the Duke to get ready. The Duke is sitting on the dinner table but then gets pissed off and calls out the butler Alfred. The butler says yes, sir. Dervin says it is already long past dinner time. Why has not the food been served yet? The butler says that ma'am says that she would come to dinner. Can they wait a little longer until ma'am comes? Dervin says what? That is nonsense. Why the person who does not even talk to him? Suddenly, the door opens and Irwin says what does he mean why? She just wants to eat with him. Dervin is mesmerized by her beauty but then asks if she is still sick. Irwin says that she is not sick anymore. She is fully recovered. Dervin asks Irwin why is she doing things she never does, and why does she not wear makeup either. Dervin says to himself that he has not seen her bare face since they get married. Irwin says that her makeup is so thick that she feels like it is making her skin look bad. Irwin with a smile asks Dervin why? Is that weird? Dervin questions himself by saying if she looks like this. No, he does not know what she will do to hurt him this time. He promises himself he would not be dragged around anymore. Dervin says yes, it is weird. Irwin asks, really weird? Is not it so much better than all that makeup? Dervin blushes and says no, he would rather be the old one. He gets flustered when Irwin says that he has very strange taste. Irwin says to let's eat, and Dervin asks himself if that style is popular here? Irwin gets pissed off and says to let's get to the point while putting down his work. Asking Irwin what the hell is she planning? Irwin asks what he means. She is trying to get along with him from now on. Dervin calls out Irwin's name and says that he has been married to her for 4 years. She thinks he does not know her shallow tricks. Irwin rises up and says what tricks? She is just trying to fulfill her duties as his wife. Dervin smirks and says duty as a wife. Huh? Then she is ready to accept those duties now? Irwin has that confused look on her face and asks what duties. Dervin blushes and says that he means. Irwin thinks to herself on what is he so ashamed to say. Dervin asks about having a child. Silence drops in the room. And Irwin exclaims what? Looking back in history, although everyone praises the appearance of the emperor's younger brother, the Duke of Sibyllum, in the end they are struck by the unparalleled beauty of the Duke of Carlisle. Even after he gets married he is considered beautiful. Many aristocratic women waiting for him line up in social circles. This is because everyone expects the Duchess to divorce after a 5-year period. In this case, Irwin, the princess of the defeated country, could save her life. The most effective way is to get the Duke's heir. In other words, the preservation of the post by the birth of an heir to the Carlisle family. But she has no intention of doing this, because she does not want to go to bed without love. Dervin says that he means having a baby. The elders of the family say that. Irwin thinks to herself that he is just trying to calmly complete the marriage period and get a divorce. Should she have children? This is not Dervin, she knows. Dervin stands up and says all right. What can he say to the guy to whom she says the first night that she does not want to mix with the blood of the invaders? Forget what he just says. Irwin thinks to herself that no, it is an opportunity. She gets up and Dervin tells her to sit down. Ignore this and keep eating. Irwin says that if she goes out this way in the middle of a meal, it is uncomfortable for her. Dervin dashes towards Irwin and asks comfortable? He tells her to do what she uses to do. Irwin, do not act like that. Irwin thinks to herself that Draven, even if he seems angry, his eyes will tremble, even his speed decreases. What is he doing this? Dervin tells her to not show up in front of him again. Not at all. As the door gets closed, Irwin sits down and eats, thinking to herself, what does she say to make him act like that? Could it be that Irwin and Dervin already have an irrevocable relationship? Mrs. Tilly tells her to not worry too much. Irwin says, oh, Mrs. Tilly. Irwin tells her that she knows she means Dervin, but can he give her a chance? She is trying really hard, but this does not seem to be working. Tilly says that the master has already noticed the change in Irwin. He is troubled enough right now. Irwin stays quiet but then turns her head and asks, really? Tilly says absolutely. Tilly says he is just really tired of waiting for this change. The scene cuts to Tilly and Irwin in a garden. They are both drinking tea. Irwin says that it would have been great if they have a moment like this before. Tilly says that she must be busy, but she takes care of her. She is really grateful to you. Irwin says no, she is more grateful. She takes care of her when she is sick. She is taking care of her even though she has not got her memory back yet. She teaches me a lot too. Irwin says thank you very much, Mrs. Tilly. Tilly is flustered and shocked but then smiles. Irwin says that, by the way, the cultural festival that will take place at the residence of the Marquis Celestino will be next week, right? Tilly says yes, ma'am. She hears it is her turn. Yes, it is true, but, since the lady is refused every year, the Marquis Celestino decides to take her place. It is said that a cultural festival is a place where aristocratic wives celebrate for a certain period of time. It is actually a party to see who could do better on stage by spending a lot of money. But at that stage they are spending a lot of money. It is the theater where the most beautiful noble ladies are decorated. And as an aspiring singer, she is confident in dancing, theater, and singing. If the Duchess of Carlisle, a recluse from the social world, has prepared the festival, many people would come to it. Irwin says Mrs. Tilly, to which she says yes, ma'am. Irwin asks if she can take charge of this cultural festival. Irwin says to herself that she will take this opportunity and change her image. Tilly is shocked and says what? Irwin says that she is going to sing, so find the best band to accompany her. Tilly asks if it is not better if the singer sings alone. Ma'am, she should ask a lot of people about tones and rhythm. Irwin says to not worry. She can do it very well on her own. Irwin starts singing and her voice is heard around the whole mansion. The farmers hear her voice. The maids identify her voice and Irwin stops. Tilly is baffled by her beautiful voice. Tilly, all excited, asks if she has been hiding this all this time. Irwin says that she does not mean to do that anyway. What does she think? Tilly says that she is wonderful. Bam! Irwin thinks to herself that by judging by the reaction of Mrs. Tilly, her singing skills work here too. Good, she will completely control the cultural festival. After 3 days, a maid calls out Irwin and says that when the Marquis Celestino reads the letter and that the lady is going to prepare for this festival, he repeatedly asks her if this is true. It seems that everyone is very interested in the lady's change. Irwin smiles and says he does not have to ask too much. It is too much for her. The maid says that the eyes of the community are already focused on you. Irwin smiles and thinks to herself that thanks to Mrs. Tilly, not only the servants of the palace, it even seems like they are spreading rumors about it, and her external reputation seems to be slowly growing. But first of all, what does Dervin think about this change that happens to her? This is the most important now. Irwin, sitting on the stairs, says to herself that he is late. She wants to see him personally and see Dervin's reaction. He has not seen him at home since that night. She cannot sleep until Dervin comes. If she sleeps, Dervin's eyes get closed and she panics as she opens them. She wakes up to her being in her bed. Irwin asks Tilly if she sleeps today too. Tilly asks if she sleeps well. Ma'am? Why does not she stop waiting at the front door all night? She is afraid she will get hurt. Irwin says, Mrs. Tilly, anyway, how does he feel? Does she think he still hates her? Tilly replies by saying that Irwin sleeps in the hallway. Who does she think takes her to bed every night? Irwin says, oh, it must be Alfred and the other servants. Tilly says, no, ma'am. Each time, the master holds the lady in his arms and takes her to bed. He says that he could not leave his wife for other people, so he comes to the imperial castle during the overtime shift. Irwin's eyes light up and she says, what? She does not think Mrs. Tilly is lying. However, Dervin does not hate her. He does not want to be with her all the time, does he? But today too, just like that night, why is he treating her this way behind her back? What are his real intentions? The scene cuts to a castle and shows a library with two people, Dervin and another person. The person tells Dervin that there has been an interesting rumor going around lately. It marks the first time he has heard the Duchess Carlisle's name several times in social circles. The person asks if Dervin knows about that. Dervin has this serious look on his face while the person goes on by saying that this time, the Duchess herself organizes a cultural festival. They also say that she stopped talking with offensive comments and improved more. After falling and waking up, did something abnormal happen in her head? And what's more, he finds himself interested in the reaction of her husband, the Duke of Carlisle. Dervin says that he can't avoid finding out about this, with all the rumors swirling lately. The person says that something has changed with Princess Varma, hasn't it? And he also heard that she waits at his door every night. Now they should call her a holy wife instead of an evil wife. Dervin looks at his ring and says to himself that she's a really strange woman. It's like everything has changed in her since she fainted and woke up again. His wife, Irwin. And even in the midst of his busy work, he returns to the palace to put her to bed. And then he goes back to the palace again, and he repeats this hard work. Since that time, why does he do this? Why can't he ask the servants to do it for him? He didn't want anyone to see her drooling lips while she was sleeping. Every time he puts her to bed, her lips slide down a little. He doesn't want anyone to see how tempting she is. He doesn't even know why he's doing this. Is this some kind of new torture methods on the part of Irwin? Or maybe she really completely changed? Dervin blushes while the person says to himself that his facial expressions really changed in the blink of an eye. It's not like he's in love, is it? He smiles and tells Dervin if he remembers when they first saw Princess Varma. Now his face looks the same as it was that day. The person asks if he didn't really know about it. He also plans to attend the festival. Of course the Empress will also be there. Dervin says, but your majesty. While stuttering, Irwin may cause a scandal. She grew up in a foreign country and has not had much of a social life since their marriage. The majesty says that it doesn't matter. He goes on by saying, well, forget about all this. He's just curious to see what Princess Varma has become. Dervin says and gets cut off by the majesty. He goes on by saying that this festival in particular, isn't this the first event she has organized? In addition to receiving the best orchestras and pianists, and she even prepared her own lyrical performance. Dervin becomes shocked and says, really? The majesty says, It seems that this is the first time he has heard that. His wife with whom he lives under the same roof behaves like that and doesn't tell him about it. Dervin says that he's sorry. He thinks to himself, why didn't Mrs. Tilly tell him about it? The Majesty says that he doesn't have to apologize to him, he has to apologize to his wife. Dervin says that he doesn't think that is necessary. He says that he doesn't know why, but it is certain that Irwin really changed her character at this time. The Majesty brings Dervin closer to him and says, "Look, Dervin, that's not all, this is a sign of reconciliation, as the wife is determined to make things right from now on. After all this time she has done bad things, now at least she has come to her senses. Isn't that a good thing? His prayers have finally been answered, so take it right, Dervin. Who knows? Perhaps a child with the blood of Varma and Carlisle will be born as such. It will be a great blessing for their country and for their diplomatic relations." The Majesty's voice fades as he walks away and Dervin looks at his engagement ring. The scene cuts to one of the butlers saying that His Highness, the main stage of the big event, is ready. The piano was also covered with fabric so that dust would not accumulate on it. Irwin thanks them for their hard work and tells them that they can come back and have a rest. The butler says yes, ma'am. Irwin says that she's very grateful for what they are doing. Both of the butlers get flustered. They leave and gossip that her personality has changed a lot, hasn't it? The other butler says yes, that's right. She really became a completely different person. Irwin hears their conversation and then shuts the door. Irwin writes a letter which says thank you for accepting this unexpected invitation to the cultural festival. She smiles to herself and says that the festival is only 3 days away, and indeed many noble families have agreed to attend. Even the Empress and the Empire will attend. It's a really great opportunity. She's not Irwin Liley as the villain who tried to kill Dervin. Now she has the opportunity to show the world that she's Irwin Carlisle, the wife who loves her husband Dervin. Irwin hears a knock and it's Tilly saying that her dress has just arrived. Should they take it to her room? Irwin says, "Tilly, please do that." Tilly asks if she would like to try it now. If it doesn't fit, she can fit it right away. Irwin says yes, and why not? But first, can she help her take off this dress? So now she's going to get her dress, says Tilly. Irwin says of course, take her time. Thank you, Tilly. Irwin says that it's very annoying that she can't take off a costume on her own. Irwin spots a mirror and says to herself that no matter how much she looks at her body, she doesn't get tired of it. Irwin's flawless body looks exaggeratedly perfect no matter how many times she looks at it. She thinks it's perfect. A door opens and Irwin asks if she brought the dress that arrived. She sees in the mirror that it was Dervin standing there. She turns and gets shocked. Dervin takes her name, and Irwin becomes confused on what's going on all of a sudden. Dervin asks if they can talk a moment to talk. Irwin looks at her clothes and gets flustered. She says to Dervin, "Isn't it rude to walk in like that while she's changing clothes?" Dervin says that he's her husband. He thinks it's nice to break this level of etiquette. Irwin says that even a husband has to respect the rules. Dervin says that Tilly has been by her side a lot lately, and it's not possible to talk with a sleeping person, right? Irwin thinks to herself that she has been with Tilly the whole time. Dervin says that it's been years since the Duchy of Carlisle has become fashionable. But how did she do it? Dervin panics but calms himself down. He gets close to Irwin and says her name. He asks her why she does things she wouldn't normally do. Is she trying to make things right with him now? Irwin says no, it's bullshit that she's doing it right. Dervin with a serious face asks bullshit? Irwin panics and thinks to herself why he's so upset like that. Did she say something wrong? She can't concentrate on the conversation with him because she doesn't have her clothes. Dervin holds his head and says to himself he doesn't know why he's even doing this. He didn't have to supervise the cultural festival. Irwin thinks to herself that she needs to cover herself with an even sheet. Dervin says the matter was left only to the Marquis de Celestine, as usual. Irwin says that he told her to do her official duties as a duchess. She doesn't know why he does this when she's just doing her homework. Does he want her to go back to the way she was before? Also, his taste is strange. Irwin trips and Dervin goes out to catch her. Irwin says to herself that she feels awkward in front of him. She opens her eyes while questioning herself if her body has fallen to the ground yet. Dervin has saved her. Dervin says that he thinks she's wrong. His taste is not strange. Irwin says that he prefers a decorated face to a plain one, and he doesn't even like how her wife has become. That's enough, you weirdo. Irwin tells him to get up. Will he do this? He's heavy. And also he doesn't have to overpay to fall into bed. Dervin holds her hands and Irwin says, "What the hell is this?" Dervin exclaims that but she will avoid him again, as she were before. Irwin gets confused and asks if doesn't Dervin hate Irwin anyway? But why? Why is he making this face? Irwin says to Dervin that she just wants to communicate with him, so she wants him to know. She won't avoid him anymore while getting flustered. Dervin says alright and gets really close to Irwin. Irwin tells him that's him and she told him to stop now. Why is he suddenly doing this? Dervin holds her face and leans in for a kiss, but she pushes him off. Dervin says that she said she was going to do her duty as a duchess. Isn't that what she wants to get with her actions? Irwin thinks to herself that last time they had dinner and now too. He still looks angry and even his tone is a bit arrogant. And why are his eyes still trembling so suspiciously? Dervin says that he can't talk to her in this case. Just stand up and let's talk well. He won't let her go until Irwin tells him the truth. Irwin says that she has already told him. All she wants is to communicate with him. Dervin says he doesn't know her yet. Irwin says that he's a foolish man and pushes him off herself, telling him to get away from her now. She gets flustered by his body. Irwin gets flustered and Dervin tells her to say it again. If she's doing something superficial, she'd better stop. Irwin says that she's not planning anything. He just mistakes her real feelings while he thinks about the past and she's sorry for that. Dervin says that thinking about the past and repenting, what is she going to gain by doing this? Irwin says that she told him over and over again. She's just going to do her duties as a duchess and complete the marriage contract successfully. Dervin laughs and says that there's nothing hard for her to say. Irwin. She tricked him like she wanted to keep staying with him, and decided to take the lead for give birth to Lilia's successor by stating that he was from the Duchy of Carlisle. She can at least be honest. Who recommended this way? Does she want us to do it this way? Irwin says what? While being frightened, Dervin says that he can't believe it. Even if it was for such a purpose, he never thought she would change so much. Irwin says that it's not like that. Dervin yells at Irwin, says if she thinks things will do well with him after she showed him such mean behavior and now she shows him a very different attitude. She tricked him into thinking she'd get a baby from him so easily. Irwin stutters and says she's not crying. Irwin starts to sob and Dervin has this stunned look on his face. He thinks to himself, what the hell is this? She thinks to herself that it is unfair that she died without being able to become a singer. But what can she do that she has become the evil wife Irwin? If she had Stella Bridge the heroine, she wouldn't be so angry right now. Irwin keeps on sobbing and thinking to herself that she kept trying even in this situation, but he still had his doubts about her. Dervin nervously says if she is crying. Irwin, all pissed off, asks if she can't even cry. Does he doubt this too? Dervin says no, it's not like that. Dervin gives her a tissue and tells her to wipe her tears. He can't look at her face because of how ashamed he is. Dervin tells her to not cry. It won't change anything. Irwin says that she's crying because she wants to cry. Tears just flow through her eyes. Irwin cries more. And Dervin holds her hand sitting beside her. Irwin asks him what is he going to do now? Doesn't he want to see her cry anymore? Is he going to say it's not his taste again? Dervin reaches out to her face and gently holds it. He thinks to himself what he should do now, and panics and backs off. He says to Irwin that if he misunderstood something, please let him know. After 4 years of suffering, why does she want to change now? Irwin says because she made him suffer all this time. She just felt very strongly that, as Duchess of Carlisle, she wouldn't be able to meet her minimum obligation. She just wants to make up for her past mistakes by faithfully performing her duty as a duchess. Dervin has this shocked look. Irwin goes on by saying that during the remaining years of their 5 years marriage, which was sanctioned by the emperor, Dervin asks about having a child. Irwin says that she never thought of having a baby, but don't worry, he'll have one in the future. Dervin grunts and tells himself about her saying that she didn't even think about. Irwin says that she knows she married her by order of His Majesty, but there is only 1 year left. During that year, she'll do her duties as duchess, and then she'll divorce him, and then he can have a baby with the woman he really loves. Dervin stays quiet and says that he will respect her decision, but he doesn't know for how long. As he closes the door, Irwin sighs and says that he really doubted it until the end. She falls on her bed thinking, what sin did she commit to owning the Irwin Lilia's bridge? Yes, a quiet future. She won't be easy to win his sympathy. However, she has to perform her duties diligently to earn his trust. That's how it is, because it's the only way to stay alive here. Dervin outside the room thinks to himself about her tears. How could she shed tears? Transparent tears like pearls in the eyes of that poison woman. It's the first time he has been so ashamed to treat her so hard. He holds his head and says that wasn't what he meant. Tilly looks at Dervin and asks if he gave the dress to the lady. Tilly asks if they talked together about the dress he gave her. Maybe an informal conversation like talking about her beauty in the dress. Dervin asks if she thinks he was in a situation like this. Tilly says even so, can't he see the lady's efforts? Dervin says to let him ask her something. Mrs. Tilly, what does it mean when a woman cries? Tilly with a shocked face says what? She says that she usually cries when she's sad, but Dervin says that he means, other than crying because of grief. Tilly with a worried face asks why did the lady cry. Dervin turns his head and says that she doesn't have to know. Hurry up and help Irwin to get dressed. Tilly says yes sir. She rushes in and says my lady, she will catch a cold. Dervin, still worried about her, eavesdrops the door and hears Tilly saying if she's going to overuse laces on her dress, she'll dress her as comfortable as possible. Ma'am. Dervin turns and says luckily, she stopped crying. He trembles and asks himself, luckily? Is he in a position to worry about her? Don't forget what that woman did for 4 years. Don't clear her doubts yet. He gets a flashback on him wiping away Irwin's tears. He says to himself that his case is really weird today. There was a long war between the Duchy of Varma and the Teresian Empire. After a long battle, the Imperial Teresian army ascended to the capital of the Duchy of Varma. Dervin met Irwin there for the first time. He had never loved anyone to that extent in his entire life. It was also the first time he desperately tried to win someone's heart. Their marriage seems to have been ordered by the Emperor for diplomatic reasons, but, in fact, it was the result of Dervin going with it despite knowing that the Emperor's younger brother, Duke Sebulum, was targeting her. Having reached the Teresian Empire as the princess of a defeated country, she didn't say anything. However, Dervin believed that if he showed her devotion, she would certainly adapt well as a duchess. Moreover, he thought he could be happy by her side. So, even though he did everything for her, he was just fancy. Those poisonous words which she shot at him during their first night made his teeth twitch. Above all, the words that she would rather die than sleep with him made Dervin's heart freeze. After years of hard work, her hatred has not disappeared. In the end, Dervin had no choice but to seal his smoldering love for her coolly. The scene cuts to her singing and the maid clapping for her. The piano player says that her throat is in good shape. Ma'am, singers can't be as precise as she is. Irwin says, is that right? Does he think her voice is good? Isn't it embarrassing for her to show off like that in front of others? He replies by saying that she has been great from the beginning. Hasn't she rehearsed this song all week? The effort added to the talent will not be better than this. The maid, all joyful, says that she heard that good people have more concerns. But ma'am, she's so cool. Irwin smiles and says thank you everyone. She thinks to herself that before she has Irwin's body, she was an ambitious singer who specialized in music. Tilly calls out Irwin and says that His Majesty the Emperor has arrived, Her Majesty the Empress, and also His Highness the Duke of Sebulum, who was not on the list. Irwin thinks to herself that the game is real, starting now. She can never go wrong at this point. As Irwin looks at the mirror and thinks to herself that the reason why the lady set up the stage high was because there's a risk of her becoming a laughingstock when the stage is destroyed. She commends her for her courage in defending her husband even while taking risks like this. If she messes up the stage, they'll misunderstand that she did it with the purpose of embarrassing Dervin. Moreover, today is the day of Irwin's debut to the world. She should tell people that she is a good wife deserving of her husband through this performance. And also she has to dazzle Dervin with her song. She clutches her fist and says that at this point, whether she lives or dies will depend on this performance. Irwin asks then, so, do they go now? Tilly tells her to please wait a moment. The master said he would come to see the lady. Irwin says what? He can't do that, he hates her so much. Tilly, all nervous, says that her thought process is nothing but guesswork. Ma'am. Irwin says that's all right. As she leaves she says that starting today, she will change Dervin's mind, and Irwin gets cut off by Dervin standing in front of her. She blushes and takes his name. She thinks to herself that he just arrived. Don't tell her he heard everything. Dervin with a still look says that does he hate Irwin? She's still thinking recklessly. Irwin says to herself that he was listening. Irwin asks if he was tapping the door. He really is. Dervin says that who's the person whose voice was so loud enough to be audible from the lobby. Tilly smiles and everyone beside Irwin and Dervin says that they'll just get out. Irwin becomes shocked by getting left alone with Dervin. She asks Dervin if they should go down. Dervin smiles and locks the door. Irwin questions him on why he locked it. Dervin asks why did he lock it. He comes close to Irwin and Irwin says that they have to go down now. Dervin says no. Does she think this is more urgent now? As he tries to grab her hand, Irwin smacks his hand off, and Dervin becomes confused and asks if that is her real intention, to beat him up. Irwin says that's because he looked like this. Dervin gets close and asks what are these looks. He was just trying to pass her hand because her hair was flowing down. Irwin gets really shy and asks what did she really imagine. Dervin smirks and says that he's only relieved a bit of tension from her. Of course a woman like her won't understand that. As he laughs off, Irwin turns and questions herself if he just laughed. This cold-hearted guy laughed in front of her? Irwin says that if that's enough to comfort her, that way she can assume he adapted to her new look, right? Dervin, all flustered, says that above all, if she makes a mistake on the stage because she's nervous, even he will be made a fool of. Let's hurry up and go, everyone's waiting for her. Irwin smiles and then they go down the stairs together. She thinks to herself, why this dress is uncomfortable today? She tells herself to slow down, but she slips on her clothes and falls down the stairs. Dervin yells out her name, trying to reach her, but he missed and Irwin fell down the stairs all unconscious. Dervin yells out her name as she's in pain. In the palace, everyone was having a conversation and people complimenting the palace, saying that this place has not changed since it was the former Duke of Carlisle's. One of the men thinks the present Duchess never touched this place. Looks like she doesn't care about the duchy at all. One of the other men says that he heard she was going to sing herself today. He also heard it's a tough song with possible a 3-layer tone. The other man replies by asking if he thinks the Duchess would sing that well, but he doesn't know why the cultural festival is currently being held here. The other man says to look over there. The servants are going overboard to organize everything and help the Duchess of Carlisle. Rumors have it that the noble Duchess of Carlisle would perform on stage, so the Duke of Sebulum came too. If it were normal, he would never have come, but the Duchess' song had a strong impact. But the way, when will the Duchess come down? Says one of the men. They want to see with their own eyes how much the Duchess has changed. The scene cuts to Irwin lying on the floor in pain. Dervin, all panicked, asks the doctor if she's okay. She isn't seriously injured, right? The doctor says yes. Fortunately, the injury was not serious, but it looks like it's going to be hard for her to stand on stage because she has hurt her ankle. Both of them become shocked to hear that. Dervin starts blaming himself, saying that it's all because of him. If he didn't walk so fast. No, if he had held her hand then. Irwin gets up and says it's not a big deal. She'll go down and try. The doctor says, ma'am, she should at least sit back down and relax for some time. Irwin says no, she can't have their guests wait for much longer. A lot of important guests came to Dervin. She takes a step and her ankle starts to hurt. Dervin holds her and tells Irwin to listen to the doctor. It's just a song. Nobody will care if she doesn't do it. Irwin grabs his shoulder and says no. The song she's going to sing today is all for him, Dervin. That's why it's impossible for her to cancel it. Dervin asks, a song just for him? Irwin says that's right. A song just for him and no one else. So please listen to the song carefully. Don't ignore it. Dervin becomes shocked and they held hands. She tells him that they need to go down together. The doctor tries to stop them. Dervin blushes and tells Irwin to not show this side of her to anyone else. Irwin questions him by saying, what does he mean? Dervin tells her that in front of others do not show her honest side, only show her fake side, because this side of her is his only. Sebulum asks the maid when the Duchess comes down. He thinks she's late because of the Duke of Carlisle. Didn't she want to accompany him? The maid says, Duke Sebulum, this is a little awkward. But the maid gets cut off by the Emperor, saying that the party hasn't officially started yet, but he's already drinking alcohol. Try to stick to ethics. Sebulum, while being drunk, says, Your Majesty, he's supposed to enjoy the banquet. Isn't today a particularly historic day because the Duchess of Carlisle will make her social debut? Dervin was so happy he took a Varma flower, but he didn't know she was a bad person. The Emperor tells him to be careful what he says. Sebulum, this is just a rumor. He thinks to himself that, of course, from what he heard from Dervin, his wife seems bad. But given the opening of this cultural festival, clearly, there is a significant change in the Duchess' feelings. Sebulum goes on by saying that today's performance is also clear. Certainly, that woman is plotting to diminish Dervin's prestige. The Emperor tells him to be calm as he turns his head, and one of the men says, Look, Dervin and his wife are coming down. One of the men asks if this is the Duchess. The other says, Oh my God, how can she be so beautiful? The girl whispers to the Emperor that she heard he had suffered because of his wife for a long time. But the way Duke Carlisle looks at her doesn't show that at all. It was clear during the wedding the relationship between the two was cold enough to believe that they were on a battlefield. Dervin was blushing, and the Emperor says that it's strange that Dervin looks like this. The Duchess says greetings to their Majesty the Emperor, Her Majesty the Empress, and His Royal Highness the Duke Sebulum. This is their first meeting since the wedding. It's been a really long time. The Emperor says that he was worried because she didn't appear in the imperial palace or social circles for 4 years. He heard that she fainted. How is her health? Irwin says that she's fine, thank you. The Emperor says that from now on, let's have meetings like this more often, especially attend parties with Dervin. It was very unfortunate to see Dervin always alone without a partner. Dervin blushes and says, Your Majesty. Sebulum walks in and says that he can't believe she couldn't attend proms or social gatherings together, as if she was ashamed of him because he's not at her level. Carlisle is simple. What happens when you choose her based on her title? Sebulum looks at her body and makes a freaky face. The Emperor yells at him. And Irwin thinks to herself that Duke Sebulum, she doesn't know him because he didn't appear much in the original novel, but she doesn't think she should get close to him. He is rude. Irwin says that she is truly sorry for not being able to fulfill her responsibilities and duties for the past 4 years. However, from now on, she'll do her best as a duchess, to prove that she'll show an artistic today. So please look forward to it. Irwin gets on the stage and says many thanks to everyone who has come here. The song she will be singing today is dedicated to her husband. This is a song dedicated to Dervin, so let's get started. Dervin has this flustered look and the Emperor smiles while looking at his face. One of the musicians starts playing his piano and Irwin starts to sing with her beautiful voice. Everyone becomes shocked and one of them said that did the Duchess have a singing talent? They have never heard a voice like this before. Irwin looks at the people and says to herself that the people's reaction isn't bad and the leg pain isn't that bad either. If she continues like this performance will be successful. Irwin ankle pain kicks in and she drops to the floor. Dervin was about to rush towards her but Irwin stops him. She says that she can't stand but she has to make this performance a success and change Dervin's feelings. Irwin continues singing while sitting on the floor. She says to herself that she has to do this to survive. The Emperor whispers to Dervin that performing a song while kneeling that looks like a scene from an opera. It's embarrassing to see such high quality performance for free. Dervin, he's so obsessed with his wife that he isn't even listening to the Emperor. That's alright, listen well, says the Emperor. Dervin becomes astonished by her performance and when the song ended the people started talking about how the Duchess's singing was great. Even the best singer in the Empire will not be able to sing like her. How was she able to hide her talent? Moreover, since it is a song for the Duke, it seems the lady has really changed. Sebulum thinks about what a beautiful flower with the scent of a song. As expected, he wants her. Dervin listened to what he just said and becomes disgusted. He pushes him off, goes towards Irwin, holds her hand and kisses it while saying that he enjoyed the song. Irwin says thank you. This pisses off Sebulum. Dervin whispers to Irwin that however, from now on, he would like her to sing such songs only when she's alone with him. Irwin says what? Dervin says honestly, he just wants to keep this side of her just for himself. Irwin questions herself about why he says that when he doesn't even like her. She wonders if he wants her to save these songs for when it's just them. She thinks about how he wants to keep this side of her all to himself. She asks herself why he treats her as if he loves her. In the novel, he was romantic with the female lead, not her. She wonders why he acts this way when he doesn't even like her at all. Irwin calls out Dervin's name. Irwin starts hearing murmuring about one of them saying Duke Carlisle must be captivated by the Duchess. Someone mentions how touched he must be since she dedicated such a beautiful song to him. Another voice notes that he's usually distant with women, so who knew he could be so affectionate? Irwin thinks to herself that maybe he's just acting like a happy couple in front of everyone. She lifts her hand and tells Dervin that of course, she'll sing it for him again if she gets the chance. Dervin becomes pissed off and the girls call out her name, telling her that her performance was amazing. She turns and sees that it was Marchioness Celestine. Dervin grabs her hand and flaps it around. Irwin asks him what he's doing. Dervin tells her that he's not comfortable leaving her alone. She asks him excuse me, but explains that her ankle feels better now that she has taken a break and there are many people here. Dervin blushes and asks if she didn't say she'd do her duties as the Duchess. Then he thinks they should show the people how they are as a couple. Irwin thinks and tells him she guesses so. Dervin suggests that they keep this up. Irwin thinks to herself that he looks rather excited for some reason. Irwin tells the girls that she's sorry for making her fill in whenever it was her turn to host the festival, Lady Celestine, and that she appreciates everything she has done for her until now. Celestine responds that it's no problem at all. Your Highness, she actually regrets not reaching out to her first. Seeing how friendly she is, she's sure they would have gotten along well had she done so. Irwin giggles and tells her that she appreciates her kind words. Dervin takes a glance at her hair and goes on by fixing it. Irwin becomes confused and asks him why he is touching her hair as she turns. Dervin explains that her hair is a bit messy. Irwin tells him it's okay and that she can do it. Dervin tells her to stay still. Celestine blushes and comments on how kind he is. Irwin thinks to herself about what's going on. He definitely dislikes her in the novel. She wonders if he's taking this a bit too far, even if it's just for show. She decides she'll have to ask him once the culture festival is over. As the festival is almost over, people start to leave while complimenting Irwin by saying thank you for the great performance. Your Highness, they tell her she was as good as a professional singer. Lady Carlisle. Irwin thanks everyone for coming today. Someone mentions that Duchess Carlyle, they enjoyed her singing today. Irwin responds with surprise, saying Your Majesties. The woman tells her that it almost moved her to tears. The emperor states that it's a loss for their nation that someone as talented and beautiful as her isn't participating in social events. Irwin responds that Your Majesty is too kind. The emperor tells her that he needs a definite answer from her that she'll start attending balls. Irwin asks pardon and explains that she hasn't been socially active until now. The emperor insists that she should start attending now. Dervin replies to the emperor by explaining that Irwin doesn't know anyone here. Even if she goes, she might feel uncomfortable since she's not used to it. That's why he doesn't want to push her if she doesn't want to attend the balls. A voice is heard from Sebulum telling him not to worry. Duke Carlyle. He explains that he'll take care of introducing her to everyone, so he doesn't need to worry. The emperor tells Sebulum to mind his own business, since he's not her husband. Sebulum responds to Your Majesty that he's just simply advising the Duke because he seems unaware of the situation. He approaches Lady Irwin and asks if he knows how many nobles were worried because she, the flower of Varma, hasn't been seen in high society. He expresses that he'd love to see her gorgeous face and hear her beautiful singing. Sebulum reaches Irwin and tells her that it's His Majesty's order for her to enter high society. Lady Irwin. Dervin steps in and swats his hand off. Sebulum yells at Dervin asking what he is doing and how dare he hit him like that. Dervin apologizes for his impoliteness, but explains there was an annoying insect that he couldn't ignore. Dervin tells Your Majesty that he'll attend the ball next week with his wife. The emperor responds, oh, really? And that he'll see both of them then. Sebulum seems pissed off. They announce they'll be leaving now. The door slams closed. Dervin holds Irwin's hand saying that everyone's left now. He turns and tells her that she did well today. He wishes her good night. Irwin holds his hand and tells him to wait. Irwin asks Dervin what he thought about her singing today. She clarifies that she means what does he think about her now. She wants to hear his honest thoughts. Dervin thinks to himself about what he should think about her. He considers that she's lovely and beautiful. It's been a long time since she has opened up her heart like this. He just wants to hold her in his arms right now. But what Dervin instead tells her is that her voice certainly filled the hall, probably because she has been shouting for the past 4 years. Her voice wasn't drowned by the piano, either. Dervin thinks to himself asking what he is saying to her. Irwin with a frown on her face tells him that she's aware she has done wrong for the past 4 years. But she wasn't in her right mind because she was terribly lonely in a foreign land. She asks if he really doesn't know how she feels. Dervin asks if she says she wants his forgiveness. Does she mean it? Irwin confirms that she does. Dervin holds his head and tells Irwin that people can't change overnight. But Dervin thinks to himself that the truth is he wants to believe that she has really changed. He believed that if he showed her his sincerity, she might eventually accept him. Dervin explains that he has been patient for 4 years, hoping her genuine feelings would reach her. But she never truly opened up to him. Dervin thinks to himself that he admits he was hurt by the hostility she has shown so far. Yet he still wants to believe that her actions are genuine this time. Dervin yells at her that's why. Even now, it seems like she is just pretending. Irwin's eyes dim and she responds that's what he thinks. She leaves and tells him it's okay. She understands. She's sure he can't change what he thinks of her so suddenly. Irwin turns and tells him that she still wants to thank him for today. Dervin. She wishes him a good night. Dervin thinks to himself that she's giving up this easily. She can't just leave like that. She should hold on to him more. She should ask him why he's so tense when he's alone. Dervin mumbles to himself while he's affectionate towards her in public. Dervin dashes towards her and hugs her from behind, telling her to please not leave him. Dervin hugs her and tells her not to go and to please not leave him. Irwin thinks to herself that he was cold until just now, but now he's hugging her. Irwin tells him to let go of her so they can talk. She tells him that she's not going anywhere. Dervin desperately tells her that he listened to her song and felt her sincerity. Irwin asks him that he said she was putting on a show. Dervin stutters and explains that his tongue slipped. He asks how could he ignore it when she put so much effort into that performance. Irwin feels pissed off and tells herself that then he should have been honest with her from the start instead of playing games. Irwin tells him that it'd be nice if he proved it with his behavior. Irwin turns her head and begins to say that he's very affectionate towards her in front of others. But when it's just them, Irwin gets cut off by Dervin kissing her. The scene cuts to Irwin flopping on her bed having a flashback of her telling Dervin not to do such things if he doesn't mean it. Dervin responds that he did mean it and she's the one who told him to prove himself with his action. Irwin thinks to herself that he first said that she's putting on a show but then right after he noticed how sincere she is. Then he suddenly hugged her and he even kissed her. She wonders why. Irwin suffocates herself under her pillow and asks if her efforts actually pay off or not. She questions what he really thinks about her and decides that if Dervin doesn't open his heart to her, she'll be. She hears a voice saying she'll wrinkle her dress. Madam. It's Mrs. Tilly. She tells her to let her help her get changed. Irwin responds that she feels much better now and thanks Mrs. Tilly. Tilly tells her not to mention it. It's her duty. By the way, she asks what Master Dervin thought of her singing and assumes he was pleased. Irwin blushes and tells Tilly that he said that she was just putting on a show. Tilly exclaims pardon. Irwin thinks to herself that Mrs. Tilly triggered that memory again. Tilly assures her that she's sure that's not what he meant. Madam. He's a very straightforward person, so his words tend to be a bit sharp. Irwin responds that she doesn't know and that she'd like to get some rest for now. Tilly asks if she shall escort her to the garden, explaining that the evening breeze is warm and perfect for relaxation. Irwin responds that she'd like that. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to Dervin sitting on his chair and saying that this is driving him nuts. He kissed Irwin on impulse. Actually, it wasn't even a kiss, just a peck on the lips. She wanted him to prove how he felt through his action, so he ended up showing her his true feelings. But then he wonders why he said such harsh things to her afterward when he didn't even mean it. It would have been better if he'd just kept quiet. He asks himself why he keeps hurting her. He thinks about Irwin Lilith, his incredibly beautiful wife. Dervin pulled himself together over and over. He kept telling himself not to expect anything from her, so he wonders why she is stirring him up like this after all this time. Irwin. Dervin loosens his collar and opens his window for the breeze. He likes the breeze but then takes a glance and looks at Irwin. He wonders what she's doing there. Irwin takes multiple glances and then takes off her boots sitting comfortably. Dervin sees that and backs off while getting flustered. He exclaims my goodness and asks what she's doing there in the garden. He takes another glance at her. Irwin comments that her legs are all swollen from wearing tights all day. Dervin becomes shy and tells himself that he shouldn't sneak a peek at her, even if she's his wife. Irwin brushes her hair off and Dervin takes another glance at her beauty. He blushes more and says yikes because Irwin looks up and appears confused. Tilly announces that Madam, she has brought her hot chocolate and macarons. Irwin responds, oh thank you Mrs. Tilly. Dervin's heart starts beating a lot as he clutches his hand saying he must be out of his mind.